quickly. Kyle adjusted the settings on his weather scanner and frowned. The thin lines on the screen were moving faster than usual. It was supposed to be a calm day, but now the wind howled like angry voices through the tall alien trees. The temperature dropped sharply. Kyle had been on this forest moon for almost 2 weeks, studying local plants, climate, and soil for the Earth Exploration Agency. It was peaceful, no dangerous animals, no hostile locals, just endless forests, and quiet. But tonight something was wrong. The storm hit fast and hard. Rain wasn't like rain on Earth. It fell in thick, sharp drops that bounced when they hit the ground. Lightning flashed across the purple clouds, followed by deep, echoing thunder that shook the ground. Kyle rushed back toward his temporary shelter. The structure was small but strong, built with layered alloys and heat panels. As he reached the door, a strange sound stopped him. It was a whimper. He turned around, peering into the darkness. The wind was strong, and leaves flew like small blades. But the sound came again, a weak, frightened cry. Kyle pulled his jacket tighter and stepped out again. His boots splashed through shallow puddles. The scanner on his wrist beeped in warning, telling him visibility was low and conditions were dangerous. But he ignored it. The sound led him to a small ditch near a fallen tree. There, barely visible under soaked leaves and dirt, were 2 small creatures. They were curled up tightly, shivering, covered in a thin layer of mud. Their fur was dark gray, with tiny glowing lines like veins running along their backs. Their ears twitched and their eyes glowed softly like blue lanterns. They looked like alien versions of wolf pups. One of them was limping, and the other seemed too cold to move. Kyle paused. His training told him to stay cautious. Unknown animals could be dangerous or carry diseases. But when he saw the smaller one lift its head and let out a weak, painful cry, something in his chest tightened. Without thinking, he bent down slowly and held out a hand. "It's okay," he said gently. "I'm not here to hurt you." The pups didn't run. They couldn't. He scooped them up one by one, wrapping them carefully in his waterproof outer shirt. Their bodies were freezing. One of them licked his wrist weakly. Kyle hurried back through, the storm holding them close. The wind tried to knock him down, but he pushed forward. By the time he reached the shelter, his clothes were soaked and the scanner was half frozen. Inside, warm light filled the space. Kyle placed the pups on a heat pad near the wall and dried them with a soft towel. He poured warm water into a shallow dish and gently cleaned the dirt from their small paws. He didn't know what they ate, but he broke small pieces of his nutrient bars and placed them nearby. The bigger pup sniffed the food, then ate it slowly. The smaller one lay quietly, breathing softly. Kyle sat down beside them and watched as they rested. The storm roared outside, but in this little room there was peace. "Where did you 2 come from?" he asked quietly. The pups didn't answer, of course, but they looked at him with those glowing blue eyes, not with fear, but with something close to trust. An hour passed. Kyle continued checking the scanners. The storm would last through the night. Outside, the wind screamed, but he barely noticed. He wrapped the smaller pup in a cloth and placed it on his lap. It sighed and curled up. He smiled. "Guess I've got roommates now." He thought about reporting it to the base back on the main, station orbiting Taraxa 9. But the storm had blocked all signals. He was alone. As sleep began to pull at his eyes, Kyle stretched out on the floor near the heater. The pups were warm now. Safe. That was all that mattered for tonight. He closed his eyes. Outside, the rain stopped around midnight. The clouds slowly moved, revealing 3 moons hanging high above the forest. Deep in the woods, hidden sensors, buried in the trees, lit up one by one, silently sending signals into the stars. They had seen what happened. They had recorded everything. In the cold silence of space, beyond the forest moon, the call reached a place no human had ever seen, a place full of power, full of purpose. The children of the Alpha Matriarch had been touched by a stranger, not harmed, not captured, not feared, but saved. By morning, the forest was calm. Birds with crystal feathers sang in the treetops. Small animals crept from their burrows. Kyle opened his eyes to soft sunlight streaming through the shielded window. The pups were still sleeping. One curled on his chest, the other tucked behind his arm. He sat up carefully and smiled. "You made it through the night, huh?" Then a sound filled the air. A deep, vibrating hum, not from the forest, but from the sky. Kyle rushed to the window and looked up. His eyes widened. Thousands of silver shapes blocked the morning sun. Long, sharp ships with glowing engines hovered. Above the trees, their presence quiet but powerful. A glowing circle appeared in the air outside his shelter, and a large, four-legged figure stepped through. It was like the pups, but taller than him, covered in armor, and with eyes that burned, like fire. Then came the voice, clear and strong. "You have touched royal blood. Prepare to be judged, human." Kyle stood still. The pups stirred and ran to his side, pressing against him like children seeking comfort. He looked at them, then at the shadowed figure outside. He had no idea what was coming next, but he knew one thing for sure: he wouldn't run, not now, not after what he did. By the strange sight in front of him. Thousands of alien ships floated in the sky. They were silent, but their presence was loud. Each ship looked different. Some were long and sharp like arrows. Others were wide like floating cities. They all glowed softly underneath, casting silver light across the forest. In front of Kyle, a tall alien creature stood. It looked like a larger version of the pups, but fully grown. Its fur was darker, almost black, and it wore silver armor that shimmered in the morning light. Its eyes were bright gold, filled with power and intelligence. Kyle held his breath as the creature walked closer. The air around it felt heavy, like the pressure before a thunderstorm. The alien stopped a few steps away from him. "You have touched royal blood," it said again, its voice deep and clear, though slightly robotic, as if it came through a translator. Kyle looked down at the pups. They stood beside him, not afraid. The larger one licked his hand and wagged its tail. The smaller one leaned against his leg. He looked back at the alien. "I didn't mean to break any rule," Kyle said. "I only helped them. They were hurt in the storm." The alien didn't move. It seemed to study Kyle for a long moment. Then, to his surprise, it nodded. "You will come with us," it said. Before Kyle could reply, a beam of soft blue light appeared around him and the pups. It didn't hurt. In fact, it felt warm, like sunlight on a spring day. The light lifted them slowly into the air. The forest disappeared below them as they rose higher. Kyle's heart beat faster. This was no rescue mission. It felt like something much bigger. He whispered to the pups, "Stay close to me. We'll figure this out together." The light brought them into a large chamber aboard a massive ship. The walls were smooth and shiny, like polished stone. The air smelled fresh, with a hint of something sweet, like flowers. Several aliens stood around the room. They all looked like different types of wolves, taller, stronger, with different fur colors and eye shapes. Some wore armor, others robes with silver patterns. They all looked at Kyle with curiosity. The tall armored one who had spoken to him before stepped forward. "I am Varek, first guard of the matriarch's bloodline," he said. "These two are the children of our queen." Kyle's eyes widened. "They're royalty?" Varek nodded. "They are her youngest. During the storm they wandered from the nesting circle and were lost. We searched, but the storm blocked our sensors. You found them first." Kyle felt a strange mix of pride and fear. "I didn't know. I just couldn't leave them." "That," said a new voice from behind him, "is exactly why you are still breathing." Kyle turned. A tall female figure entered the chamber. She was majestic. Her fur was silver and white, with glowing patterns that shifted like starlight. Her eyes were deep blue like oceans, and she walked with the grace of a queen. Everyone in the room bowed, even Varek. Kyle stood still, unsure of what to do. The pups, however, ran to the queen and began jumping happily around her legs. she smiled, and leaned down, touching them gently with her forehead. Then she looked at Kyle. "I am Lyrea, Alpha Matriarch of the Dravari," she said. "You saved what is most precious to me. Not for reward, not for glory, but because it was right." Kyle nodded slowly. Any good person would have done the same. Lyrea stepped closer. Many would have walked away. Few would risk their life for creatures they do not understand. You showed mercy without knowing their value. The chamber remained quiet. Then Lyrea said something unexpected. "You are now part of the Pack Oath." Kyle blinked. "What does that mean?" Varric stepped forward. "It means you are bonded to them and to us. They chose you. They returned to you when afraid. That means something deep in our ways." Kyle looked down at the pups who were now sitting beside him again. "I didn't ask for that," he said honestly. "I just wanted to help." "And that," Lyrea replied, "is what makes the bond strong." Over the next few days, Kyle stayed aboard the flagship. He was not treated as a prisoner. Instead, he was offered comfort, food, and knowledge. The Dravari fed him fruits and cooked roots that glowed slightly in the dark. He was shown holograms of their history, tales of ancient forests, Star Wars, and long-lost oaths. He learned that the Dravari were once hunters and warriors feared across galaxies. But after generations of war, they chose peace. They now ruled through honor, tradition, and strength of heart. The pups he saved were Rill and Sorrow, the youngest in a line of royal children born once every 10 years. Losing them would have caused sorrow and possibly war with any species blamed for their deaths. But instead, the story had changed. A human from a distant planet had saved them. Lyrea asked Kyle many questions. Not about weapons or Earth's armies, but about kindness, about why he helped without knowing who they were. Kyle answered honestly. "They were scared, cold. I couldn't leave them there. That's all." One evening, as they sat in a quiet garden chamber, Lyrea said softly, "Perhaps your kind is not as distant from ours as we believed." But not everyone on the ship agreed. A message came from one of the warlords of the Dravari clans. His name was Theric, and he believed humans were weak and unworthy. He was angry that a stranger had been accepted by the matriarch. To him, honor was earned through strength, not mercy. He sent a challenge. If Kyle wished to remain in the Queen's trust, he must face the trial of the Fang, a traditional test used to prove courage. Varric tried to stop it. "He is not Dravari. This is unfair." But Lyrea looked at Kyle. Kyle stood up. "I'll do it." "You could die," Varric warned. "I saved them because it was right," Kyle said. "Now I'll stand for that choice. I don't need to be strong, I'll just be me." Lyrea bowed her head. "Then we prepare." That night, Kyle sat with Rill and Sorrow, who curled around him. He whispered, "Guess we've come a long way since that storm, huh?" He closed his eyes. Tomorrow he would face a trial meant for warriors. But deep in his heart, he knew he wasn't alone, and sometimes that was enough. Grounds. He looked around at the ancient stone walls, the long dirt path in the center, and the rings of alien warriors watching from the sides. There was no cheering, no music, only quiet respect. This was where the trial of the Fang would take place. The Dravari did not believe in easy victories. Their tests were old, passed down through generations. These trials were not only about strength, they tested courage, heart, and the will to stand when others would fall. Kyle had no armor, no weapons. Just the clothes the Dravari had given him, a tayam, simple tunic and boots made from their soft but tough tree fiber. Across from him stood Theric, the challenger. Theric was twice Kyle's size, with silver markings across his black fur. He wore ceremonial armor and carried a staff with sharp metal tips. His golden eyes glowed with pride. "You don't belong here, human," Theric growled. "But you will leave with honor, or not at all." Kyle didn't answer. He didn't need to prove himself to Theric. He only needed to prove he wouldn't run. Earlier that morning, Varric had visited Kyle in his resting chamber. "You don't have to do this," the guard said. "I know," Kyle replied, "but I want to. I came here because I helped two helpless creatures. Now I must help protect what that means." Varric studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Then remember this. Dravari respect those who do not quit. No matter the pain, no matter the odds." Now back in the ring, the trial began. A loud horn echoed through the air. Theric moved fast, swinging his staff. Kyle barely dodged the first strike. The second grazed his arm, leaving a sharp sting. But Kyle didn't fall. He remembered his training, back on Earth. He wasn't a soldier, but he had trained in survival. He knew how to stay calm, how to move smart. He didn't fight back with strength. He used his mind. When Theric swung again, Kyle rolled beneath it and grabbed a handful of dirt. He tossed it at Theric's eyes. The warrior roared and stepped back, blinking. Kyle used the moment to climb a large stone and jump behind him. The crowd gasped, not because of power, but because of creativity. Theric growled louder. "You play tricks?" Kyle answered. "I use what I have." The fight continued. Theric knocked Kyle down twice, but Kyle stood up each time. His body hurt, but he didn't give up. The pups were watching from the side with Queen Larea. He couldn't fail them. At one point, Kyle faked a fall. When Theric stepped close to finish it, Kyle kicked the staff away and tackled him to the ground. They both lay there, breathing hard. Then Theric began to laugh, a deep, rough laugh. "You are not strong," he said, "but your heart is." He stood up and offered his hand. Kyle took it. The crowd stood and howled, not in anger, but in approval. The trial was over. Later, Kyle sat on a bench near the garden pool, his arms bandaged, his muscles sore. The air was warm and the stars above were clearer than any night on Earth. Larea approached, holding a carved wooden box. She sat beside him and placed it in his lap. "You faced a challenge meant for warriors," she said, "and you did not run. You have earned this." Kyle opened the box. Inside was a small crystal fang on a silver chain. "It's beautiful," he whispered. "It is a mark of the trial. You are now called Storm Brother, by the will of the council and the heart of the pack." Kyle didn't know what to say. He looked at the pups, Real and Sorrow, sleeping beside the pool. He smiled. "I didn't expect any of this," he said quietly. Larea nodded. The best stories begin with something unexpected. In the following days, Kyle's life aboard the Dravari ship changed. He was no longer just a visitor. He was part of the clan. He was invited to join ceremonies, meals, and even small missions with the younger scouts. He learned their language, little by little. It was a mix of sounds, growls, and hand gestures. The pups helped him learn by playing word games and giving him playful bites when he got it wrong. He was also given his own space in the ship, a round room with soft walls and glowing plants that lit the night. The pups often slept beside him, and sometimes even Varric would join for quiet talks. Despite all the comfort, Kyle never forgot he was far from Earth. One day, while walking through a long glass hallway overlooking space, he asked Larea, "Why? Did you really keep me here?" Larea stopped walking. "Because you reminded us of something we had forgotten," she said. "That mercy is not weakness. That helping without knowing the reward is the highest kind of strength." Kyle looked at the stars. "Do you think our people could ever be friends?" She looked at him. "That depends. Will your people listen? As you did? Will they care for the small ones like you did for mine?" Kyle nodded slowly. "Some will. Enough to matter." Soon after, a ceremony was held in the honor hall. It was carved from ancient tree stone and lit with floating lights. Warriors, scouts, and elders stood in a great circle. At the center stood Kyle. Queen Larea spoke loudly, her voice echoing through the hall. "This human, unknown to us, saved the young when all thought they were lost. He faced the storm. He faced the trial. And now, he faces the future with us." She looked at him. "Kyle of Earth, Storm Brother of the Dravari. You are now one of our kind." A soft hum filled the air as everyone raised their claws to the sky. It was a sign of deep respect. Kyle bowed. He wasn't just a visitor anymore. That night, as he sat in his room, Real and Sorrow curled at his sides, Kyle held the silver fang in his hand. He thought about Earth, about the quiet forest on Tiraxa 9, about the storm, and the moment he saw two frightened eyes in the rain. Everything had changed from that one moment. One act of kindness had opened a door between two worlds, and Kyle knew this was just the beginning. But peace did not last forever. One evening, as the stars turned above the Dravari fleet, a new signal arrived. It came from a nearby system, a broken distress call in an old Earth dialect. The signal was weak, almost hidden. But Kyle recognized it. "That's human," he whispered. The message repeated on loop. "Civilian transport. Downed. Coordinates attached. Survivors hiding. Unknown attackers. Help us." Kyle stood frozen as the bridge crew listened, in silence. Lirea, the matriarch, slowly turned toward him. "Do you know this signal?" "It's from Earth," Kyle said. "Or at least from a human ship." Varric stepped forward. "It could be a trap." "Maybe," Kyle replied. "But if it's not, then people are out there, alone, like I was." The room fell quiet. Lirea finally gave a nod. "Prepare a small scout ship," she ordered. "Kyle, you will go. You will take Varric and 2 of my elite guards, and you will take the pups. They trust you." Kyle blinked. "You're sending me?" "You are Stormbrother now," she said calmly. "Your choice began all this. It should be you who answers this call." Hours later, Kyle sat inside a sleek Dravari scout ship. It looked like a silver arrow with soft blue lights. The controls were strange to him, but Varric handled the flying. The pups, Real and Sorrow, sat beside him, tails wagging nervously. They traveled fast, slipping through space in glowing tunnels of energy. Within minutes, they reached the coordinates. A small rocky moon floated in darkness. Smoke rose from its surface. Pieces of a human ship lay scattered across the gray land. Signals blinked from beneath the wreckage. They landed quietly, scanning for life signs. "I see 6 survivors," Varric said. "They're hiding in a cave." As the team approached, Kyle stepped forward slowly. He raised his hands and spoke through his translator. "We're here to help. I'm human, Kyle Morgan. You're safe now." Out of the shadows came a woman holding a small child. Behind her were 2 injured men and a pair of teenagers carrying supplies. Their eyes went wide when they saw the Dravari guards. "Don't be scared," Kyle said. "They're with me." The woman stepped forward. "How do you know them?" Kyle smiled and pointed at the pups. "It's a long story, but I saved these 2 from a storm and they saved me in return." The humans were brought aboard the scout ship and treated with care. Medical pods healed their wounds. They were given food, water, and blankets. The child laughed while playing with Real and Sorrow, who acted like happy dogs rather than alien royalty. One of the injured men looked at Kyle and said, "You're a legend already. Word about you reached even the colonies. The human who stood before 2,000 alien ships and didn't flinch." Kyle chuckled. "I just didn't know what else to do." As they returned to the main fleet, Kyle felt proud, not for being brave, but for doing what felt right. He had a second chance to help, and this time it might mean even more. Back on the main ship, the rescued humans were brought to the healing halls. Queen Lirea came to meet them. She wore a silver robe and a crown made of crystal feathers. The humans bowed low, unsure of what to say. Lirea looked at the child and smiled softly. "You are safe," she said, "because one of yours saved 2 of mine." She turned to Kyle. "You bring honor to both our kinds." That evening, a feast was held. Strange glowing fruits were served on golden plates. Alien music filled the air. The rescued humans sat beside, Dravari warriors sharing stories and learning each other's ways. Kyle sat with Varric, the pups, and the teenage boy from the cave, whose name was Sam. The boy kept asking questions about the ships, the trial, and how the pups chose Kyle. They just trusted me, Kyle explained. I think they saw something in me, or maybe I saw something in them. Sam nodded. I want to be like that someday. Brave, helpful. You already are, Kyle said. You helped carry your team. You didn't give up. That matters. But all was not quiet. Theric, the warlord Kyle had once faced, returned from a distant planet. He had heard of Kyle's mission and Leraya's decision to trust him again. Theric was not angry this time, but he was worried. He spoke privately, with the Queen. Your bond with the human grows strong, he said, but not all clans will agree. If they see you favor him too much, it could cause tension. Leraya nodded. I know. He must prove again, not with fists, but with peace. She looked at the stars. Then we show them what peace looks like. The next day, Leraya made a surprising announcement. A council gathering would be held. All major Dravari clans would attend. She wanted Kyle to stand before them not as a fighter, but as a speaker. A voice of a new bond. You want me to talk? Kyle asked, surprised. Yes, Leraya replied. Tell them what you told me. About kindness, about why you helped. Show them that trust can grow from small things. Kyle felt nervous. He had faced storms, ships, even battles. But public speaking? In front of alien leaders? Still, he agreed. On the day of the gathering, Kyle stood in a tall stone hall with wide windows looking out into space. Warriors and leaders from dozens of ships sat around him. The air was tense. Leraya gave him a nod. Kyle stepped forward. I'm not a soldier, he began. I'm not powerful or fast. I didn't grow up in a royal house. I was just doing research on a forest moon. I thought I'd be alone the whole time. He paused and looked at the pups sitting near his feet. But then, I saw two small creatures shivering in the storm. They were scared, cold. I didn't know who they were. I didn't care. I helped them because that's what I would do for any living thing. Some of the alien leaders shifted in their seats. Kyle continued. They didn't speak my language. They didn't promise me anything. But when I gave them warmth, they gave me trust. He looked around the hall. We think peace starts with big treaties, big words, big actions. But I think peace starts when someone decides not to look away. When someone chooses to help, even if no one else is watching. There was silence. Then one by one, the leaders began to nod. A moment later, Theric stood and spoke. The human has earned my respect. Then others stood, and then they howled. A sign of unity. That night, Kyle stood with Leraya, looking at the stars. You did well, she said. He nodded slowly. I just told the truth. She looked at him with soft eyes. That's all it ever takes. Ship. The wind of artificial atmosphere blew through his hair. All around him, the great council members stood in a wide circle, their armor shining under the twin suns. This was not a meeting of war. This was a ceremony of peace. Below the platform, thousands of Dravari from different clans watched silently. Ships floated above the crowd like stars frozen in daylight. Their engines were silent, their weapons off. Queen Leraya stepped forward. Her voice was calm but firm. We gather today not because of war or fear, she said, but because one human reminded us of something stronger than force, kindness without expectation. She turned to Kyle. You saved the children of my bloodline without knowing who they were. You faced storms, battles, and ancient trials, not for reward, but because your heart told you it was right. Kyle bowed his head slightly. He didn't need to speak now. This was her moment. Leraya raised a glowing staff into the air. It shined bright, reflecting in every eye. With the power of the Alpha Matriarch, I name you forever our brother, Storm Brother of the Dravari. A protector, a friend, a living bond between our people. The crowd howled in agreement. Kyle stood tall. His eyes burned slightly, not from dust or light, but from emotion. He had come to this world alone, with only a scanner and a mission. Now he stood as a symbol of peace between two very different worlds. After the ceremony, Kyle walked through the city chambers of the flagship. Everywhere he went, Dravari warriors greeted him with respectful nods. Some even smiled. Real and Sorrow, the two pups he had once pulled from a muddy storm ditch, now walked proudly by his side. They had grown larger and stronger but still stayed close to him, still playful, still loyal. Kyle stopped at a tall window that looked out into space. Dozens of ships hovered beyond the view, all facing one direction, toward Earth. Varek approached quietly. "The Queen has decided," he said. "We will visit your world, not to conquer, not to demand, but to greet." Kyle turned slowly. "You mean a peaceful contact?" Varek nodded. "Yes. And you will be the one to lead it." 3 days later, Earth's skies changed. It began with a sudden shadow over the clouds. Then came the soft hum, dozens of ships entering the upper atmosphere without force, without noise, without a single weapon raised. Panic rose at first, but when world leaders received messages translated into every human language, the panic became curiosity. The message was simple. "We come in peace. We come in friendship. One of yours saved two of ours. Now we offer our hand in return." Kyle stepped out of the main ship onto the green fields near Earth's global diplomacy base. Reporters, scientists, and soldiers all stood frozen as they watched him descend. Behind him walked Queen Lirea and a few Dravari leaders. At his side were Real and Sorrow, tails wagging happily. Someone in the crowd shouted, "That's him! That's the human from Tiraxa 9! Kyle smiled. He walked forward calmly. The Earth ambassador, a kind older woman with silver hair, stepped forward. "Are we safe?" she asked softly. Kyle nodded. "They didn't come to take. They came because I gave." He explained everything, about the pups, the trial, the ceremony, and the bond now formed between the species. He told them how a simple act of kindness had opened a door to a new chapter. Lirea spoke next. "We do not wish to lead or rule your people. We only wish to walk beside you." The crowd listened, and then, one by one, hands were offered. Some human children even ran forward to pet the alien pups who rolled on the grass like playful dogs. The first peaceful alliance in Earth's history with an alien race was formed, not by war or money, but by a man who stopped in the rain for two small creatures. Months passed. Kyle became an ambassador for Earth and the Dravari. He traveled between planets, helping with cultural talks, peace missions, and science exchanges. His name appeared in history books. Children across Earth and the stars studied his story, but he never forgot where it began. One quiet evening, Kyle returned to Tiraxa 9. The forest was calm again. New plants had grown where the old ones had burned. Birds sang in the treetops, and the wind was soft, not violent. He walked to the spot near the fallen tree where he had first found Real and Sorrow. They followed him, now fully grown and majestic. They sniffed the ground as if remembering that stormy night. Kyle sat down on a smooth rock and smiled. "It's strange," he said. "This place was so quiet back then. I thought I'd be alone the whole time." Sorrow sat beside him and nudged his arm. Real licked his hand gently. "I'm not alone. Anymore, huh?" Kyle said softly. Above him, the stars blinked quietly. From the trees, more glowing eyes appeared. Dravari scouts who had come to guard their brother. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Back on Earth, a statue was built in front of the Global Peace Hall. It showed a man kneeling beside two small pups, offering them warmth with a blanket. Behind him stood alien ships, not in attack, but in thanks. The words carved into the stone were simple. Sometimes the smallest act can unite the largest worlds. Kyle never called himself a hero. He never asked for reward. He only did what his heart told him was right, and because of that, the galaxy would never be the same again.